Beyond just changing the political landscape of Britain, the Anglo-Saxons also contributed hundreds of new words to the English language, many of which had nautical meanings. An important aspect of British history, the Anglo-Saxons arrived on the island in waves following the fall of the Roman Empire, and ruled there until 1066. Their group was distinct. They gradually extended over Britain until their kingdoms left such an enduring imprint that the British Isles are still arranged according to them today. The Anglo-Saxons were more than just skilled warriors. Despite the attention paid to their bloody conflicts and rival kingdoms, they also created a thriving culture with entertainment, food, and religion. They revealed the humanity beneath their armor by creating beautiful artwork and leaving written records of their history and tales. Anglo-Saxon culture is still present in Britain today and is influenced by it everywhere in the world. It's time to explore their culture and discover what made them unique in the early Middle Ages. Don't forget to subscribe to Ancient History for fascinating insights into the mysteries of the ancient world and captivating historical narratives. The Anglo-Saxons arrived in Britain in what manner? Anglo-Saxons were not the first foreigners to settle in Britain. Hadrian's Wall was constructed around 128 CE, and England was ruled by the Roman Empire to their arrival. When the Roman Empire began to wane, it started to leave England, allowing its roads and buildings to deteriorate. The Romans had formally abandoned the island by 410 CE. Once again, the Britons had a few years alone, but the Anglo-Saxons would soon start to arrive. The Saxons, the Jutes, and the Angles were the three Germanic tribes that made up the Anglo-Saxons. These were the three Germanic tribes that modern historians, such as the Venerable Bede, have mentioned as having settled in Britain, even though they were not the only ones to raid the country towards the end of the Roman occupation. The ancient home of the Angles was Anglia, a little peninsula that is located in northern Germany and modern-day Denmark. Originally from Old Saxony, the Saxons were a more powerful group in continental Europe. They quickly expanded and seized territory that had belonged to the Romans. Because of this, and the fact that a number of kingdoms claim their kings are descended from him, historians rank him as the highest deity. In sacred wooded places, the Anglo-Saxons worshipped a number of different gods that may have had Norse counterparts. Naturally, when Christianity came to the island, everything changed. Although Christianity technically arrived first with the Romans, Christian missionaries had to promote their religion a second time, since the Britons were not keen to share it with their new conquerors. At the urging of King Ethelbert and his wife Bertha, Augustine landed in Kent in 597 CE and started converting people to Christianity. Having just recently become Christians, the king and queen were keen to assist Augustine in evangelization and to rebuild Canterbury's Church of St. Martin. Naturally, the spread of Christianity was not without difficulty on the island. Following the death of King Ethelbert, there was a brief return of pagan customs in Kent. Nonetheless, as Christian missionaries proliferated throughout Europe, they kept coming to England. The Anglo-Saxon kingdoms were at war with one another in the early 600s due to theological disputes. But within a few decades, the Anglo-Saxons converted to Christianity and integrated it fully into their way of life. But Anglo-Saxon life in Britain went beyond religion. Anglo-Saxon ideology placed a high value on battle. Long before they came to Britain, they had been skilled warriors, and they applied their talents to defeat the Britons and take up residence on the island. The Celts, of course, never really gave up. After being driven into what is now Wales, they persisted in opposing Anglo-Saxon control and eventually drew boundaries between Wales and England. The Anglo-Saxons also practiced warfare by assaulting one another and repelling Viking incursions. Their warfare strategy evolved from tribal groupings to cohesive armies as their civilization advanced. Historians are not sure if the Anglo-Saxons often employed archers, but they created shield walls by pressing inward and hitting with swords, spears, and other weapons. These battles required a great deal of bravery. Those warriors who dared to leave their company and risk their lives were richly rewarded if they lived to tell the tale. Naturally, Anglo-Saxon civilization encompassed more than just battle. Although they worked in a number of fields, farming was the most popular. The majority of commoners were farmers who farmed their tiny plots of land. In addition to hunting and fishing, the Anglo-Saxons maintained animals, including sheep, pigs, chicken, and cattle. Intricate Anglo-Saxon metalwork was produced by potters, seamstresses, woodworkers, and metalsmiths. Many of these pieces were also works of art. In particular, their metal jewelry was frequently ornate and brimming with details that still astound specialists to this day. Anglo-Saxon culture valued art and entertainment, and they relished feasts that often included singing and dance. A lot of mead was also provided during these feasts, mostly by the female attendees. Due to limited access to clean, pure water sources, the Anglo-Saxons did not drink a lot of it. Rather, they produced mead, a stronger alcoholic beverage, from honey, and utilized barley to make a light beer for daily consumption. During feasts, mead was so popular that the gathering places were dubbed mead halls. The Anglo-Saxons used wine in addition to a varied and rich diet. They had plenty of meat from hunting, fishing, and herding, and they could grow vegetables, apples, peas, and parsnips, as well as grains for bread. Dairy products, including cheese, milk, and butter, were also abundant. Bread, cheese, and eggs were normally the staples of even the poorest diets, while meat was commonly consumed by the richer classes. Anglo-Saxon architecture is one way that we may witness their passion for art. Despite the fact that much of their culture was focused on survival and fighting, their mead halls, typically consisting of a single chamber with a hearth in the center, were remarkably spacious. They used prizes like deer, antlers, and shields to adorn the wall. In place of dirt, some of them even had wooden floors. Churches, on the other hand, were among the few structures constructed of stone, and as such, they functioned as more enduring specimens of Anglo-Saxon architecture. Whereas churches in the south resembled Roman basilicas, those in the north tended to be narrow rectangles. Although the Anglo-Saxons built modest buildings with arched or triangular windows, they frequently reused Roman stones. The artwork of the Anglo-Saxons was even more remarkable. Among their most well-known creations are metal pieces such as brooches. Their work was extremely detailed and frequently included carvings, but it wasn't only jewelry. Embroideries were also a popular art form. The most well-known example is the Bayeux Tapestry. It depicts the Battle of Hastings and was probably embroidered by Anglo-Saxon artisans, most likely nuns and priestesses, even though it was made in 1066, 20 years after the Norman conquest. The 224-foot tapestry discusses the Battle of Hastings and how it altered England's course in a sequential manner. The most famous examples of Anglo-Saxon art are undoubtedly their illuminated manuscripts. These were holy texts, typically embellished with images and gold. The Italian, Germanic, and Celtic illumination traditions are the most well-known of the many styles that existed during the Middle Ages. The Echternach Gospels are among the most well-known examples of Anglo-Saxon illuminated manuscripts. Historians surmise that they were composed in Northumbria. People are still in awe of these works of art, which serve as a reminder that the Anglo-Saxon era in British history was not entirely negative. Rather, they molded the island, advancing them through the early Middle Ages and leaving a lasting legacy that continues to this day. What do the Anglo-Saxons leave behind? The Anglo-Saxons left a lasting mark across European history because they were interconnected, influenced the development of Christianity, and promoted trade. They were so close to the Italian Pope, in fact. Their early attempts at unity were crucial, but their greatest influences were still seen in Britain. The island was not fully united until the last stages of their reign, although efforts to do so had started in the 6th century by a number of Anglo-Saxon kingdoms. Their desire for political and cultural unification ultimately materialized in the celebration of the English language. The emphasis on language finally enabled the Anglo-Saxons to build their own religious identity and write their own literature, providing us many of the historical documents we still use today. They translated books from Latin into Old English and even started giving sermons in the language. In the short time they controlled Britain, the daring Anglo-Saxons developed a new culture. They transformed Britain from a conglomeration of tribes into a single nation during their reign, establishing a language and culture that now form the cornerstone of the British identity. The British have changed the course of world history since the Anglo-Saxons, yet things would have turned out quite differently if the Anglo-Saxons had not initially established themselves and unintentionally set this little island on the route to greatness. That's all for this video. We will be back soon with another informative video. Don't forget to like and share this video. To keep exploring ancient history together, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Until next time!